My phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was from a place I'd spent years trying to forget. "You are cordially invited to the engagement party of Cassandra and Andrew," it read. I stared at the screen, a cold, hollow laugh escaping my lips. After 7 years of absolute silence, my sister wanted me at her party. It felt like a sick joke. I am, and always have been, the ghost of my family's attic. The unwanted first draft they could never quite erase. My parents, Richard and Lydia, were barely out of their teens when I was born, an accident that derailed their plans for travel and freedom. They are deeply religious and saw termination as a sin, so they endured me. Their resentment wasn't a subtle undercurrent. It was the foundation of our home. My sister, Cassandra, arrived 5 years later. Planned, celebrated, adored. She was a golden child, the incarnation of the life they'd intended to have before I came along. I was the scapegoat, the living reminder of their sacrifice. My childhood is a blur of neglect that sharpened into pointed cruelty. Meals were conditional on perfect silence and invisibility. Praise was non-existent. Punishment was creative and frequent. Locked in the musty basement for hours, given chores meant to break my spirit, enduring sharp, pinching twists of skin where bruises wouldn't show. Cassandra learned quickly. By the time she was 6, she was an expert in psychological torment, and by 8, she joined with slaps and shoves, knowing our parents would either look the other way or blame me for provoking her. The one time I pushed her back in self-defense, I was denied food for 2 days and forced to apologize to her in front of our extended family at a Thanksgiving dinner. I learned my place. Beneath everyone, the only solace was my paternal grandfather, Henry. He saw it. He would sneak me extra snacks, let me hide in his tool shed to read, and whisper, "This isn't right, kiddo. You remember that. This is them, not you." But he was elderly, with a bad heart and limited means. Taking me in was impossible, and involving authorities he feared would see me lost in a broken foster system or make my home life even worse in retaliation. So I endured. I became a quiet, withdrawn ghost, counting down the days until I could vanish. On my 18th birthday, I left with a single duffel bag and didn't look back. I worked 2 minimum wage jobs, lived in a shoebox apartment, and slowly, painfully, built a life of quiet solitude. I made a couple friends, kind, normal people who had no frame of reference for my past. I never spoke of my family. They were a closed chapter, a wound I'd learned to ignore. Then the text arrived. My grandfather called later that evening, his voice frail. "They got your number from my address book. Mia, Cassandra insisted. She wants you there for appearances. Says it'll look bad if her only sister isn't there." He sighed heavily. "You don't have to go. Don't let them pull you back in." But a twisted part of me was curious. Had time softened them? Was this a clumsy olive branch? Or did I just need to see the proof of their contempt one more time to finally kill the weak, hopeful thing inside me that still wondered, what if? My mother called a day later. Her voice was unfamiliar in its forced pleasantry. "Mia, darling, we do hope you'll come. It would mean so much to Cassandra. Andrew's family is very traditional. They'll expect to see the whole family." There it was, for show. I agreed, my voice flat. I'd go. I'd be their prop, and then I'd leave, and that would be that. The engagement party was held at a pretentious country club in my hometown, a place I'd only ever seen from the outside. I arrived in my one simple dress, feeling like a stain on the polished marble floors. My parents greeted me with stiff, brief hugs, their eyes sweeping over me with a familiar mix of disapproval and dismissal. They looked older, sharper. Cassandra was radiant in a champagne-colored gown, holding court like a queen. She gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You came. Try not to embarrass us." Then she introduced me to Andrew. He was tall, with a warm, open face and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He shook my hand firmly. "Mia, I've heard so little about you. I was starting to think you were a myth." His tone was teasing, friendly. He seemed genuinely pleased to meet me. "Cassandra says you're very private, always working. I'm glad you could make it." I muttered something noncommittal, thrown by his demeanor. He wasn't what I'd expected. I braced myself for a mirror of my sister, vain, cold, entitled. Andrew was normal, nice even. For the first hour, I was ignored, which was my preferred state. I hovered near the punch bowl, exchanging a few words with my grandfather, who looked worried. Then Andrew found me again. He seemed determined to include me. "So you're a graphic designer?" he asked, having extracted that nugget from our earlier stilted conversation. "That's fantastic. Cassandra mentioned you do freelance work. That takes a lot of guts." He asked thoughtful questions, actually listening to my short, awkward answers. He invited me to join him and Cassandra for brunch the following weekend. We're going to be family, after all. I'd really like to get to know my future sister-in-law. I was stunned into silence. This was a script I didn't have. I managed a vague, "That's kind of you, we'll see," before excusing myself to get air. The cognitive dissonance was dizzying. Andrew was acting like I was a person, a valued relative. It was more unsettling than outright hostility. Cassandra, of course, had been watching. The moment I stepped out onto the terrace, she materialized beside me, her pleasant facade evaporating like smoke. She grabbed my elbow, her nails digging in, and yanked me further out into the shadowy garden. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "I'm not doing anything," I said, trying to pull my arm free. "Don't play dumb. I saw you batting your eyes at Andrew, clinging to him. Try to make yourself interesting. Let me make something crystal clear." She stepped closer, her face a mask of pure hatred. "You are not part of this family. You were invited as a courtesy, a piece of set dressing. No one wants you here. No one has ever wanted you. You are a burden, a mistake our parents have regretted every single day of their lives. You think showing up and pretending to be normal changes anything? You are unwanted. You have always been unwanted. Stay away from Andrew. Finish your drink and disappear like the ghost you are." The words were like old knives, their edges familiar, but no less sharp. They were the soundtrack of my youth. I felt nothing but a cold, heavy numbness. "Fine," I said flatly. "I'll leave." "Good," she spat. "And don't you dare contact him or try to weasel your way into our lives. This is my life. You have no place in it." I turned to go, but the movement revealed a figure standing in the doorway to the terrace, a cigarette glowing in his hand, his face pale and stricken in the dim light. Andrew. He'd heard everything. Our eyes met for a second. I saw shock, horror, and dawning understanding. I didn't wait. I walked right past him, through the ballroom, out the front doors, and into the night. I drove home in a silent daze, the numbness my only shield. For 2 days, there was quiet. I buried myself in work, trying to forget the party. Then the storm hit. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails, a torrent of fury from my parents and Cassandra. "How dare you?" my mother screamed in a voicemail. "You've ruined everything. Andrew is having doubts because of your little performance. You manipulative witch." Cassandra texted, a barrage of messages flooding in. "You set me up. You knew he was there. You've always been jealous, always trying to destroy anything good in my life. You will fix this," my father commanded in a cold, hard call. "You will call Andrew and explain that it was a misunderstanding. Sisters fight. You will tell him it was all in good fun, that you love each other. You will save this engagement or so. Help me. The demands were ludicrous, monstrous. They wanted me to lie, to become an accomplice in sanitizing their abuse, to paint my tormentors as a loving family and myself as a willing participant in sisterly squabbles. My grandfather was my anchor. "Don't you dare," he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard in years. "You tell the truth, Mia, or you say nothing at all. That young man deserves to know what he's marrying into. Cassandra doesn't deserve him, and he certainly doesn't deserve a lifetime of this poison." But the pressure was immense. The harassment was constant. A psychic battering ram against the walls I'd built. A weak, traumatized part of me whispered, "Just do it. Tell the lie. Give them what they want, and maybe they'll leave you alone forever." The urge to capitulate, to buy peace at the cost of my own integrity, was terrifyingly strong. Then Andrew texted me. It was a simple, sober message. "Mia, this is Andrew. I need to talk to you. Please. I need to understand what I heard. Can we meet?" Cassandra, in her staggering arrogance, had given him my number. She was so confident in her power over me, so sure I would parrot her narrative, that she had handed him the key to the truth. I was paralyzed. The moral choice was clear, but the emotional cost felt insurmountable. Talking about it meant reliving it, dissecting it, giving voice to the pain I'd spent a lifetime burying. I confided in my closest friend, Dana. I showed her the messages, the story pouring out in broken fragments. She held me as I finally, fully broke down, years of suppressed terror, anger, and grief erupting in wrenching sobs. She helped me find a therapist specializing in childhood trauma and family estrangement. "You don't have to do this alone anymore," she promised. With Dana's support, I made a decision. I would meet Andrew. I would not lie. He deserved the truth before he bound his life to Cassandra's. I texted him back and arranged to meet at a quiet, public cafe. I brought Dana with me. She sat at a nearby table, a silent sentinel. Andrew was already there, looking exhausted and years older than he had at the party. The cheerful man from the engagement was gone, replaced by someone haunted. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice rough. I don't even know where to start." "You heard what you heard," I said, my own voice surprisingly steady, the numbness returning as a protective layer. It wasn't a misunderstanding. "Tell me," he said simply. "Please, tell me about your family." So I did. I started from the beginning, the accident of my birth, the resentment, the neglect that turned to active cruelty. I described the punishments, the favoritism so blatant it felt cartoonish, the way Cassandra was trained to see me as less than human. I spoke of the loneliness, the fear, the desperate escape at 18, and the 7 years of silence. I showed in the text from the last few days the demands that I lie, the venomous accusations. I held nothing back. It took hours. The numbness eventually cracked, and the pain seeped through. I cried. Andrew cried too, his hand over his mouth in horror. "She told me you were estranged because you were difficult, selfish, that you chose to cut them off. Your parents, they were so kind to me. They talked about you like you were a troubled stranger." He revealed that after the party, he confronted Cassandra. She'd laughed it off, calling me overly sensitive, saying all sisters said horrible things in fights. He'd pressed her, then called my parents, who echoed her and painted me as a pathological liar jealous of Cassandra's happiness. Something in their vehemence fell off. He'd then called my grandfather, who, after extracting a promise of discretion, told him the unvarnished truth. That's when Andrew had told Cassandra the engagement was off. Her reaction, initially tearful, then furious, then manipulatively sweet, had further confirmed his fears. That's when she, convinced of my compliance, had urged him to hear it from Mia herself. "I fell in love with a fiction," he said quietly, wiping his eyes. The woman she presented to me, charming, generous, light, she doesn't exist, or she exists only as a mask. What I saw in the garden, that was real. And what you've told me, that's the foundation. I won't build a life on that. We parted, both emotionally eviscerated. Later he texted, I'm ending it for good. I'm so sorry for what they did to you. Thank you for your courage. Andrew moved his essentials out of their shared apartment before formally ending the relationship. His foresight was wise. Cassandra's reaction was unhinged. When pleading and promises failed, she spiraled into a vortex of rage. She vandalized the apartment, sent him videos of the destruction, stalked him to his friends' homes and his workplace, and showed up at his parents' house, causing a scene that required police intervention. She received warnings, but they were like water on a wildfire. Then she turned her fury on me. She knew my schedule at the bakery where I worked my second job. One evening, as I was leaving, I saw her car idling across the street. Our eyes met through the windshield. I saw pure, unadulterated hatred. She gunned the engine and sped directly toward me. I leapt backward, tripping over the curb and landing hard on my side, my arm snapping under me with a sickening crunch. Her car mounted the curb, scraping against a brick wall where I'd been standing second before, and sped off. The pain was blinding, but the terror was worse. She had tried to kill me. The following weeks were a blur of police reports, restraining orders, hospital visits for my broken arm, and paralyzing anxiety. Dana basically moved me into her apartment. Andrew, burdened by guilt and solidarity, provided a detailed statement to the police about her escalating behavior. My grandfather, my aunts and uncles, family members who had been kept at bay by my parents' lies, rallied around me. Seeing the evidence, hearing the truth from me and my grandfather, they were appalled. They offered practical help and, more importantly, belated but genuine familial love. My grandfather, with a strength that defied his years, formally disowned my parents and Cassandra. My parents' response was to bombard me with messages blaming me for destroying the family and driving your sister to madness. They said I deserved what happened. They were served with restraining orders alongside Cassandra. The legal process was grueling, but the evidence was overwhelming. The threats, the stalking, the attempted vehicular assault. Cassandra eventually took a plea deal. She was sentenced to a short jail term, mandatory anger management, and was ordered to pay me restitution, a sum I knew would come from my parents. The restraining orders were made permanent. 3 months have passed. The physical fracture in my arm has healed, though it aches in the cold. The psychological fractures are deeper, but for the first time, they are being properly tended. Therapy is brutal and essential. Some days are still dark, filled with the echoes of old taunts and the fear of seeing her face. But they are becoming less frequent. I feel lighter, as if a physical weight I'd carried for decades has been chipped away. The truth is no longer a shameful secret I protect from my abusers. It is my history, acknowledged and believed. The love and support I receive now from my grandfather and extended family is bittersweet, but healing. It proves I was never unlovable. I was just in the wrong place. Andrew and I don't speak often, but we check in occasionally. He's moved to a new city for a job, a fresh start. He's in therapy, too, untangling the betrayal of his relationship. We share a bond forged in a bizarre and painful crucible, but we are not each other's keepers. We are survivors of the same shipwreck, swimming toward separate, hopefully calmer, shores. I still live with Dana, though we're looking for a slightly bigger place together. I've started taking on more ambitious design projects. The other day, I caught myself laughing at something on TV, a real, unguarded laugh that didn't feel immediately followed by shame. It was a small thing, but it felt like a revolution. My parents and Cassandra are gone from my life, blocked by law and by my own choice. I don't know what they tell themselves to sleep at night, and I no longer care. Their narrative holds no power here. The little girl locked in the basement, the ghost at the party, the woman dodging a car. She's finally stepping into the light. It's a harsh light, revealing all the scars and bruises, but it's my light, and for the first time, it feels warm.